Hello and welcome to episode 33 of Arg My Optics! A podcast where two grown adults discuss, overanalyze and generally take a toy media franchise originally intended for kids a little too seriously. Usually that of the Transformers. I am your forgotten or cancelled toy from a previous line spruced up and redecoed to fill out a hastily put together toy line host, Orion Ghia. And with me is my all-new figure utilising everything learnt from the past 15 years of Transformers to spearhead a new age of the franchise co-host, Virtual Dave.
Hello.
Hello. How's it been? It's been a while.
It's been a while, yeah. It's good, yeah. It's a nice starting point to the year, I think. RID, or Car Robots if you're nasty.
Oh, spoilers. So yeah, we're back. It's been a few months. But we did promise that Arg My Optics would return on a more occasional basis. You may have seen Galactos and myself have launched a new monthly podcast based on comics. That's called We've Got Back Issues. And it's a sort of book club affair where we read a comic, invite listeners to do the same, and talk about it for an hour or so. So if that sounds interesting to you, please check it out. Have you checked that out, Dave?
I've listened to the first one. I haven't listened to the second bit yet.
All right, yeah, the second one came out about a week ago, so you're forgiven for not listening to it quite yet, but you should get on it.
No, sure.
All right?
I never knew that, well, I knew about the Fantastic Four, but I didn't realise how wacky it was in, like, you know, how it was written.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's, the early days of, like, the 616 are just, yeah, they are mad. I mean, early Marvel comics are. So, yeah. No, I mean, I wasn't 100% aware of quite how kind of Stan Lee just throws ideas at the wall that are just kind of, and too many at the same time. Yeah, it was great fun reading that. Anyway, we're not talking about that. Go on.
No, I was just going to say, I wish I could do that in life, you know, just, you know, an accident happens, I can just call myself Mr. Fantastic is all. It's...
Well, he's a bit full of himself, isn't he? Anyway... That's another podcast. But if that doesn't interest you, well, we're back to do some more traditional Transformers-flavoured content for your listening pleasure. So, Dave, you chose today's topic of conversation. Even though you've just let the cat out of the bag, what is it and what are we talking about?
They know. They've clicked on the thumbnail.
That's true.
Today, we are talking about Transformers RID, the original, the first one, 2001, the pinnacle of Transformers in terms of wackiness and outlandish Japanese humour. I think this show is one of my favourites just for its absurdity. Like, it's just, you know.
I mean, yeah, I suppose it... Well, I don't think it is and it isn't. I mean, it is what you say it is, but, I mean, it's only because it's the only one that was ported over.
Well, I mean, I know of the others. I mean, Beast Wars II is pretty crazy too, don't get me wrong.
But that's what I mean, yeah. So, yes, you called it RID, but let's give it its full name, Robots in Disguise.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah, Transformers Robots in Disguise, which is often abbreviated to RID, and not to be confused with the 2012 IDW comic book of the same name.
Or the show, 2015.
Or the frankly baffling 2015 Transformers cartoon and toy line of exactly the same name. Why, Hasbro? Why?
You know.
Anyway, Transformers Car Robots, the Japanese version of the line, launched in 2000 and was originally a Japanese-only line and TV series. After Beast Wars and Beast Wars Second, Beast Wars Neo and Beast Wars Metals, Japan had grown tired of the Beast era and it had lost its popularity. So, instead of following Hasbro into Beast Machines, Takara decided to engage in a total refresh of the brand. This line consisted of a mixture of new moulds and redecorated older moulds, many of which had not seen release in Japan. Many of the new moulds focused on modern-day real-life vehicles. Across the pond, or over the, do you say cross the pond when you're talking about the Atlantic? I mean, sorry, the Pacific rather than the Atlantic? Anyway. In the US, Hasbro, who had chosen to drop its sequel to Beast Machines Transtech due to Beast Machines not being as well received as it had hoped, and the toy line being somewhat of a flop, they chose to launch the Car Robots line and a dub of the TV show in the West in 2001 under the name Robots in Disguise, as a placeholder to fill a gap between the end of the Beast era and the start of Transformers Armada, which Hasbro and Takara were co-developing at the time. In addition to much of what Takara had released, Hasbro added even more redecos and retools of older molds, including a few previously cancelled toys. And story-wise, Robots in Disguise was the first full reboot of the franchise in the US. Where Beast Wars had eventually been revealed to be a continuation of G1, this was a whole new continuity. Whereas in Japan, it was still linked to G1, albeit in a typically confusing Japanese way.
My optics!
So, Dave, what was your personal experience of Robots in Disguise, Transformers Robots in Disguise?
Well, a lot of the Transformers media around this time, it was not available for me to watch regularly. I'm not sure if this was on TV in the UK while I was growing up at any point.
I mean, I think it was, but I didn't watch it, so.
I just got one of the standard DVDs at HMV when I was probably like late teens or something, and watched it. I think I only had like the first 8 episodes or so, and that was pretty fun. That was, I liked it. I watched it regularly, but I didn't really see the rest of the show until much later. In fact, I didn't finish the show until having to rewatch it for this. So I had not seen any episodes before the landfill build team was introduced. I hadn't seen any episodes past that.
All right.
It was weird because I didn't really understand how this fit at all. Like, I thought this is some sort of weird continuation of Beast Wars because the Predacons are there, but then I did understand why the Decepticons weren't there and why the Maximals weren't there. Like, I don't understand why these two factions were the core at the start of the show. And I never found out until many years later. It was a weird mystery.
Did you buy the toys? Did you have the toys?
I had the powered up version of Sideburn. I think that's the only toy I had for the longest time until years later I actually got Fire Convoy and Ultra Magnus and Megatron. And I think that's it. That's the only ones I have from the line.
All right. Well, I mean, for me, this line was the line that got me back into Transformers, into the franchise. It was probably like early 2002 that I chanced upon an Optimus Prime in Toy Master Sheffield and picked it up for like 20 quid. I just thought this looked cool.
Wow.
It was the first time in ages a Transformer had looked cool to me because I hadn't been interested in the Beast era at all because I was very much truck not monkey at the time. But I loved it. It reignited my interest in Transformers, and I took to the toy stores and the internet to find out more, discovering places like Cybertron.com and its photo galleries and Ben's World of Transformers with his photo reviews, and I was off. Me and my friend Stu, who had jumped onto the Transformers bandwagon at the same time as me, enjoyed hunting down the entire line. Much of it had started to appear in discount stores like Home Bargains, so some of it was dirt cheap. It was fun, and it was during the time Armada began, but we were still much more interested in RID because it felt less deliberately aimed at children and more all ages.
Okay.
The toys did, for sure. And I didn't watch the show. I didn't give a shit about the show. Honestly, I haven't watched Transformers Robots in Disguise or Transformers Car Robots until I watched it for this, and I didn't watch it all.
You didn't watch it all?
No, it's too banal for that.
Well, I thought you would have been just like, I'll just skip to the recap episodes.
Well, I did. I just skipped through. I watched the first 3 or so, and I thought, okay, I get what this is. And then I jumped forward to bits where new characters got introduced, and that was essentially it. Like, but yeah, I mean, well, let's do it. Let's talk about the TV show.
My optics!
So the TV show started in December 2000, Car Robots, which immediately followed the conclusion of Beast Wars Metals in Japan, which was Season 1 and Season 2 of Beast Wars. There was no Beast Machines, and it inherited the traditional TV Tokyo Transformers slot that they'd had since 1997, which was 6:30 on a Wednesday evening. And this was the first Japanese original TV show and toy line to be imported to the US. It's very Japanese, as you'd expect. Stock transformation sequences with combinations and attacks that have to be declared, and flying fist attacks, things like that. It's daft.
All good stuff, as far as I hear so far.
But it's certainly not not something. I mean, you grew up in the period when Japanese animation was in.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. And that, for me, I mean, it wasn't, when we were kids, it wasn't really on telly. I mean, not in the UK anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I don't even really adjust my brain to that way of thinking, but I have grown up with so much anime now, and so many shows where this was kind of, the humour would kind of fit into this, and how it's done, that these type of tropes and things just kind of resonate with me a lot more, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those Japanese style shows that were very popular at the time. Around about that time, you had things like Gundam Wing, Dragon Ball Z or Z, stuff like that. Yu-Gi-Oh! Probably. All that kind of stuff was kind of kicking off around that time, and there was lots of those being ported across to American and British television.
Oh yeah, 4Kids got them all.
But I was in my 20s, so I wasn't interested in watching a lot of that stuff. And I didn't watch any car robots or robots in disguise at all. So yeah, it was I think it's 39 episodes. I think there's a few less in the US. The US had to cut some stuff out, which you'll get onto.
Oh.
It was produced by Saban Entertainment and aired on Fox Kids during its peak of popularity. As I was saying, there was a boom in Japanese animation. Pokemon's another one, of course.
Yeah.
So all those shows. It was called Robots in Disguise because the show leans into the concept of robots hiding in plain sight as vehicles.
Yeah.
Often living undercover lives as those vehicles, I noticed. Or at least in the Japanese version. I think both versions it does that. Because I watch a bit of both.
They did for like the first 7 or 8 episodes, and it kind of gets put on the back pedal. But yes.
Yeah. But it is kind of like, oh, we're going to call in these guys. Like they're calling the train team, and they're busy being trainers.
Yeah. And they just they have to detach their passengers and just leave them in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and someone else has to come and tow the carriages. So yeah, they did that. And so yes, I was going to say the dub was like heavily edited after 9/11.
Oh.
Because that occurred only 3 days into the series.
Right. Oh, okay.
So they removed images of urban destruction and buildings blowing up and things like that, and had to redub some of it so that it didn't refer to things like that. Meaning it aired slightly out of order at times as well while they were editing some of the episodes.
Yeah, there is. Well, it's really weird. When I was watching it, there's an episode, like a recap episode, and I think it's only one from like the Predacons perspective, and this is post Galvatron, but in the recap episode it's Megatron again talking about what had just occurred for the last like 10 episodes.
Well, that's the thing. They made their own. There were recap episodes in the Japanese version, but I think they made some specifically American versions of the recap episodes, so that they could put those in when they were struggling to fill it out.
Fill a time slot.
But yeah, they did a lot of that, and they dropped a few episodes, so the count went down to 36 from 39, I think. But the missing dub episodes, though, because they did dub some of the episodes that they later dropped because they were just too referential to buildings blowing up and so on. Those missing dub episodes did eventually resurface in the UK and Canada. I don't know whether they're on TV, but they were on. I think they're on the DVDs.
Okay, yeah.
Which is another thing to say. This was never released on DVD in the US.
Why?
Well, because Disney acquired Robots in Disguise when they purchased Saban Entertainment.
Oh yes, I have heard about this because that's why it's because when Hasbro had their the hub thing, it wasn't on that, and I remember people talking about this. Yeah.
Yeah, essentially, Disney own it. So It's the only show that was released in the English language market that Hasbro doesn't retain full ownership of, so they weren't able to release it on DVD in the US, and haven't yet, I don't believe. And Disney show no interest in doing anything with it.
Interesting. I'm sure we'll get onto that in another way later.
My optics!
So yeah, I mean, do you want to go over what the rough plot of the show is then?
I can try. Well, the show starts off with Dr. Onishi holding some sort of, or he's being celebrated at some sort of parade or show, and he's giving some sort of speech, and then, out of nowhere, Megatron turns up and tells everyone that he's such an amazing scientist and his research and energy is so great. You'll be very useful to me. And, tries to kidnap him.
Yeah. I mean, not tries, he does.
Well, yeah. And somehow in between all that, Dr. Onishi calls his son and tells him what's going on and gets cut off, and Optimus Prime appears and says, "Don't worry, kid, I'll save your dad."
Yeah.
And he doesn't for like 30 episodes.
No, they almost forget about it, don't they?
They really do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I did watch that episode and make some notes on the episode. It's the only episode I made any notes on. But, so yeah, Prime kind of just kind of intercepts the call or something and phones him on it. Phones up Yuki or Kojo or whatever, Koji. I think it's called Yuki in the Japanese show. Anyway, and says, "Come meet me at the park." It's like, oh, okay.
Okay.
All right. Prime tells the firefighters he's off. And then, they meet in the park and they drive to New York over the Atlantic or the Pacific Ocean. Because I think they're in Japan. I don't know. But they have this amazing space bridge thing, which is basically a road.
Yeah.
They have this road that goes, I mean, depending on which version you're watching, I think in the Japanese show, it goes under the ground and it goes through the middle of the earth to get to places. Whereas it's more explained in the Robots in Disguise version that it's more transwarp, kind of portal kind of thing.
I think that's how I took it in those first few episodes, because there is like some sort of like, bubble appears and they like seem to be teleporting or at least traveling through like a pocket dimension of some sort. But later as the show goes along, it does feel more like they're just driving to these places than they're being...
Well, because in the Japanese show they were just driving to these places. They were just driving via a road that goes through the Earth's crust.
Which doesn't sound... I mean... the structural integrity of the Earth must be...
And these aliens, these alien robots are digging into the core of the Earth, building these roads.
Yeah. Everywhere, because they go it's random streets.
Yep, it just appears, doesn't it? But yeah, essentially they turn up in New York, and they fight Gigatron / Megatron, and then now this is the other place where the two shows differ. According to the Japanese show, according to the American show, they're just on Earth. Right, and this is a brand new version of the franchise, so there's no references to anything in the past. It's just happening now. They're on Earth. That's what's happening. Whereas in the Japanese version, Fire Convoy has followed Gigatron through the time stream from the future to this era, and this is happening during G1.
What?
Yeah. So meanwhile, the G1 people are off in space doing their G1 stuff. So this kind of slots in somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but it's between G1 shows, and it's when most of the G1 people are in space, so they're not really on Earth anymore.
Well, that makes it a lot more confusing.
Well, yeah, but they kind of they say it and then they go, but don't worry, we're not going to really adhere very much to this. It's just so that we can explain how this links to the last show you watched.
Right. Okay.
You know, and then they kind of forget about it, you know? Okay, continuity fans, if you really want to know, here in a nutshell is how it works, if it works at all. Because car robots followed Beast Wars Metals and occupied the same slot on TV Tokyo Transformers had held for 4 series already, it was promoted as a continuation of the same continuity. The series synopsis on TV Tokyo's website and even the original toy catalogues backed this up, setting out that the Destrongers, the bad guys, were extremist Destrons who came through a dimensional rift to the 21st century, and that Fire Convoy and his team, the Dimensional Patrol, were sent to stop them. Seeing as the first episode starts with a celebration of the new millennium, it is assumed that it is the year 2000 on Earth, which would place the series in the gap between the second season of Generation 1 and Transformers the movie. However, the show never overtly references this, unless you're watching the dodgy sub Orion watched on YouTube. And there's no appearances of or references to the G1 characters. But the inclusion of familiar concepts like protoforms, Vector Sigma, and the head-on system from the Headmasters had fans scratching their heads. Although there was also some confusion in the US due to the dub including occasional references to G1, Beast Wars and Beast Machines, and some of the toy bios suggesting links to previous continuity, it was generally agreed by fans, as much as it can be agreed by fans, that both versions of the series were separate from previous continuity. And everyone was happy. For a bit. And then Takara, in their infinite wisdom, confused things further by using the fiction connected to Transformers KISS players of all things to firmly place car robots within the Japanese G1 continuity. Indeed, they appeared to believe it always had been, and it was daft of the fans to require them to go to all this extra effort to clarify. However, Hasbro on the other hand made no effort to do the same, and have always treated Robots in Disguise 2001 as separate to all other continuities. So there it is. Any the wiser? No? Need to lie down? Yeah, me too. Either way, they fight. Prime's basically protecting the planet, and and Megatron just wants to take all of its energy and take over, and the normal bullshit. Mm-hmm. Megatron/Gigatron shows off as many modes as possible before summoning his cronies, who are 3 Beast Wars they're Beast Wars molds: Slapper, Gazgunk, and Darkscream. Mm-hmm. I think they're their names. They've got different names in Japan. More fighting. Megatron goes for Dr. Onishi. And his son, who is Koji, gets involved. Out of nowhere, they introduce a holographic girl called Tai, who rustles up some Autobot reinforcements in the shape of the Autobot cars, the Autobot brothers, which is X-Brawn, Sideburn, and Prowl. They come along, everyone fights. Prime demands Gigatron surrenders, or Megatron. Then I think Megatron says, well, we could just share the Earth's riches. And he goes, no, I won't do that. Then he makes his fist hit him. And then Megatron fucks off with Koji's father, meaning the Autobots have achieved nothing except outing themselves on the world stage. Mm-hmm. And then Prime very solemnly promises to rescue his father and protect Earth from the baddies, and then does nothing about it for about 20 episodes.
Yes, basically. And it's so weird because that section, like I was saying, is what I saw like a lot on the episodes I had at home, and it was just like they don't even like really give a try at trying to find their base. It's just so. What do you call it? Like the Predacons are doing something and they respond. They're not actively looking or not going out of their way to help this man at all.
No, not at all. They completely forget about Dr. Onishi straight away. Like it's like next episode, it's almost like we're not bothered, and neither's his son.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes there's this episode where his son's just looking at his picture and feeling sad, or he's like, hey, my dad and I went there and we had a good time in this mountain for some strange reason.
Remember my dad? Yeah. So I wonder what he's doing right now. Well, he's he's probably starved to death.
Well, yeah.
Because The Decepticons probably don't realise he needs food to live or anything. No, they just kind of ignore him. And then the only other human character we have is that poor unfortunate woman who keeps getting caught in...
Kelly, yeah.
Yeah, she keeps getting caught in these things. Every time that something happens, she happens to be there.
She seems to be either a very wealthy person or just like as crazy as the others, because she has like 5 or 10 different red coloured vehicles that Sideburn is chasing, and she also seems to be the owner of X-Brawn.
Oh, does she?
Half the time she's always driving him at the start, and then he kicks her out when a mission turns up. He's like, "Sorry, lady."
Yeah. Is it the same person?
It's the same person.
Oh, okay. I don't remember them being the same person, but yeah. Sideburn has got some kind of weird thing going on where he's in love with other cars,
which is like, I mean, I don't mind that that's a thing, but they really ham it up like it's like there's a whole episode about it when like Megatron dresses up as a red car and he couldn't tell.
It's creepy. It is weird. I mean, it's fine. This is the thing, right? It is a throwaway Japanese TV show aimed at a younger audience. I mean, the thing is, in Japan, Transformers never grew up. Like, it never went on to be more... With Beast Wars, like, the approach was, right, we're going to aim this show at the kids who grew up with G1. The kids who are now older kids. Now maybe heading slightly towards teenagers. Right, so we're going to make it a bit more grown up, a bit more adult. There's going to be slightly more kind of more story and more kind of character. They never did that in Japan. All the Japanese shows, all the Transformers shows are aimed at very young children, and it shows. Like, this is just, it's silly slapstick daft stuff with silly humour, overly energetic characters, and plots that mostly don't make any sense and are quite disposable.
Wait, but then at the same time, I have to clarify, like that's not a bad thing. Like that's. I'm
not saying it's a bad thing.
No.
I'm just saying that's what it is.
I'm just saying for listeners, like I'm saying, like I think that's I mean, I think I've said it before in a previous episode. I think it's something that Transformers kind of need a bit more of, because some of it is becoming very serious and like the Primes and Primus sent me somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
And Unicron is coming. Well, can we not just have a chill day and? Yeah, chase some red sports cars or something,
Oh, agreed. I think where it does best is where it walks the line between the two.
Yeah.
Like, I think Beast Wars is a good example of that.
Yeah.
Whereas Beast Machines maybe wasn't. You know what I mean? Like, there's still fun stuff for kids, and for the older fans, there's also something there. Because, I mean, watching this now, I'm like, do I need to watch another 20 episodes of this? It's essentially this. Every episode is essentially the same. It's the bad guys, whether they're Predacons, Decepticons, Combatrons, or whatever they're called. The Decepticon faction is called Combatrons, I think, in the Japanese version. Whatever it is, the baddies are trying to steal energy like they've always been since G1. Usually a very convoluted way. The Autobots get wind of it. They mobilise to stop them. Tai may draft in some new characters previously hiding amongst the population, being it cars or trains or construction vehicles or whatever. And then they all fight. There are transformations, combinations, lots of announcing attacks, and someone wins, usually the Autobots, but the baddies get away to fight another day. Next episode, same thing. Next episode, same thing. Next episode, same thing. Next episode, same thing. Next episode, same thing.
Well, it's a like that. That's what I was kind of, hinting at earlier. Like, it's a like that for a lot until like the Decepticons turn up and things start to change a bit, and especially when more Autobots just like start turning up from Cybertron. Apparently, there's a bit more conniving going on the bad guy side, and especially the whole thing about how the Decepticons were introduced. Like I said, I had no idea how they turn up, and I was not expecting them to be protoforms in a Axelon-looking spaceship.
But it makes more sense when you know that in the Japanese version it was connected to G1 and therefore Beast Wars.
Well, yes, but That's not what I was expecting to happen. But I mean,
Yeah.
it makes sense, and I even kind of like how they kind of give an excuse of why Scourge looks like Prime in this whole.
A bit of a lame excuse.
Well, I mean, at least an attempt.
He was touching it at the time.
At least an attempt was made. You know, it would be very odd if they just kind of not talked about it. Like, why does he look like Optimus Prime?
So, for listeners, Scourge, who you probably, I mean, if you're listening to this, you know who he is. It's called Black Convoy in the Japanese version. It's essentially a Optimus Prime repaint in black. Mm-hmm. And, yes, so when they are choosing alt modes for these new protoforms, Megatron has one and aims it at this oil tanker. And at that very time, because it's being driven by Kelly at the time.
Yeah, that is also a point.
And Optimus Prime goes to save Kelly, because apparently it's all going to explode or something if they're not careful, because it's going to fall over and blow up. And Optimus Prime jumps in to stop the truck from falling over, and at that very point, the beam hits it, and therefore it scans both the truck and Optimus Prime at the same time.
And Kelly.
Yes, so why has he not got like a human component, an organic component?
He does. Well, kind of.
Does he?
They kind of put it in on the American dub, yes. I don't know if they do it in Japan. Yes, there's... You know, later on when Fortress Maximus gets introduced...
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. Well...
I mean, I do know that Fortress Maximus gets introduced, but...
Fortress Maximus turns up in Brave Maximus colours. He looks great.
Because he is Brave Maximus.
And in the show, they make it out is that in order to control Fortress Maximus, he's not really a sentient being. He kind of needs someone to wield him to do things.
Yeah.
And they kind of make it out that, it's going to be Prime and the Matrix going to be the one to give commands. And at first it looks like that because Scourge kind of tricks it to thinking that it's Prime because he's scanned Prime. And he's got some of Prime's energy signature or something.
Yeah.
But then further on it goes, it's actually the will of human beings. And specifically, children seem to be quite powerful in controlling Fortress Maximus. It gets very weird very quickly, and Scourge uses the bit of Kelly that he's got in his makeup, and he can control Fortress Maximus for a whole episode.
Right, okay, well, I didn't know that. But then, I mean, I skimmed the series. I was scrubbing through the episode going, when does Fortress Maximus turn up? Oh, here he is. Okay, alright, fine. I suppose the other character we should talk about before we stop talking about this silly TV show is Ultra Magnus, I guess.
Oh, that's not who I thought you were going to say. Okay.
Oh, were you going to talk about everyone's favourite?
Who's your favourite shark around? Who's the favourite shark down? Skybite.
That guy.
That's me.
Skybite. Yeah, I don't understand why anyone finds him entertaining. But anyway, we could talk about him in a minute then.
Go on,
or do you want to talk? Let's talk about him now.
No. Let's go talk about Ultra Magnus. Go on.
So yeah, Ultra Magnus, who is, I mean, I think in both versions he's meant to be Optimus Prime's brother.
Oh, weird addition, but cool, fine.
But also hates him.
That's more believable, yeah.
Hates him, and he's a psychopath.
Yeah.
He just turns up and starts destroying Autobots.
He seems to just doesn't really care.
Yeah.
About the others. Like he just wants to get whatever he wants done.
And he wonders why he wasn't chosen to lead the Autobots.
Yeah.
When he doesn't care about Autobots.
He kind of makes it like a thing of like, I'm not doing this because if you're ordering me Prime, I'm not doing it. I'm doing it because I want to do it. Type of thing, you know.
Yeah.
Angsty teenager type stuff. Like
he's a cock, really, isn't he?
I mean, he comes around and he gives us the magic of repaints.
Does he?
Yeah, he gives the Autobot brothers their super forms.
Yes, and starts a terrible trend.
Which is, I mean, I guess you wouldn't have noticed this if you were scrubbing. Did you notice that everyone's got a license plate and the number of, like, C Cybertron 1 to whatever? when they power up, their numbers change to like the number of Autobots we've seen so far.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just like a weird, like there's like a whole animation for it. It's like a weird little James Bond, like the license plate flips around for when they power up.
Because it's their designation. It's what toy they are. It literally is.
Is it really?
Yes.
Well, okay, that's just brilliant then.
That's what's printed on the boxes in Japan.
Was it? Wow.
Have you not noticed that all Japanese versions of the line, they all have a number, a denotation. They're all like, this is, for instance, I think Galaxy Force, it was GF or something like that, 01, 02, 03. You know what I mean? Like, I've
not seen, actually, that's the point. I don't think I've actually seen Car Robots boxes.
Oh, okay. But essentially, yes, that's their designation. So Optimus Prime is C001.
Yeah.
And or 01 or whatever. So that's why they're there.
That's good. I like that little detail. Don't get me wrong.
So the repaints had to have a new designation because they're new toys.
That's so cool. I'm looking at it now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Ultra Magnus seems, heavily armored. One-man army. He can fly. And they were all kind of like, whoa, an Autobot can fly. It's like, yeah, that's actually a point. There's no air-based Autobots for some weird reason. But, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But essentially, he hates Optimus Prime. He wants the Matrix. He wants to be the leader. And he challenges him. He tries to trick him. In that he goes, actually, no, it's fine. I'm actually not trying to take over. And goes to shake his hand. He's like, ha ha, I was only lying. I'm actually going to take over. And I'm going to steal all your power. And they combine into Omega Prime. And then it turns out that Ultra Magnus doesn't have the control over Omega Prime that he thought he'd have. And they have to work together when they're Omega Prime. Yeah, exactly. So yes, there's kind of an uneasy alliance between the two in a way. But not really. I
have two problems with Ultra Magnus. One, I kind of understand because it's just like a Japanese trope that they just seem to do for everything these days. Is like when a new person turns up in a show, they have an ability or they have set of skills that makes them like crazy powerful, and they can just wipe out the entire set of people. But the longer they're there, they seem to just become as weak as the first set of guys.
Yeah, well, that is normal.
Yeah. But it's just so apparent with him, like, because when he turns up, he is, like, quite aggressive. And, doesn't really care about shooting up places that may blow up and destroy, like, 10 miles of real estate for these people in Japan. He's not like all the others, like when Towline turns up and he keeps hijacking cars and says they're parking in the right place. That's not the same level of, yes, I can understand why the Decepticons would get the better of him eventually.
You may be applying a little bit too much logic to a daft Japanese TV show.
Yeah, maybe. That's what I'm saying. That's the one I can kind of forgive, yeah? It's how it didn't really go anywhere with the two of them. Like, I kind of thought like it would... They kind of say like they resolve it like, I think it's like the last episode where they combine for the last time and they're like, they kind of agree to disagree on the whole leadership thing. I just felt like there would have been more of it, like he would have kind of joined the ranks completely. I don't know, maybe that's an episode that got cut out or something, but it's just...
I don't know. Like I say, I with previous shows like this, I have watched the entire show. And usually because they're good, not always. No, Armada wasn't good. No, Energon. I remember Energon being better than it was. But, like, animated Beast Wars are absolute joys to watch. This, no. So I didn't... I just thought, why am I bothering? Why I put myself through this? I know what it is. It's fine. And I think the much more interesting thing to talk about when it comes to this franchise is the toy line. So we'll get onto that in a bit. But before we do, how about we talk a little bit about Skybite, just because for some reason he's a fan favourite character, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a standout character just because of his personality. Because I think the other Predacons are kind of interchangeable in terms of like how wacky and silly they are.
Pretty much.
You know, they're kind of like, I'm guessing you know who Bulk and Skull is in Power Rangers. They're just the slapstick characters. But, you know, Skybite was taken a little bit more seriously at the beginning. He kind of had this like love of human poetry, and he liked reciting it to people. But as it went along, he kind of felt like he kind of got sidelined by the Decepticons, and he was always fighting for...
Well, it's the same phenomenon you were just talking about. It's like, in the first couple of episodes, the Decepticons, the Predacons, are Megatron and his 3 guys. And those 3 guys become sidelined when Skybite turns up.
Yes.
And they become even more comedic than they already were. And then, when Scourge, or Black Convoy, turns up, then Skybite gets sidelined.
Yeah, but the difference with the 2, Skybite, he makes mistakes and he has these weird plans that doesn't fall through. But in doing so, in the Autobots and human side of it, like, they notice that from their perspective, they think he's becoming a good guy. And they like him in the show.
Because he's messing up so much.
He's messing up, and they like him in the show. And it gets to a point where, like, random kids are coming up to him and just saying, "Hi, Skybite, you alright? You coming to see Koji?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, and they all kind of like him.
Yeah.
And he has, like, some sort of inner turmoil of, like, oh, do I help these people, or do I get the gratitude from Megatron or Galvatron at that point? And he's the one who saves Koji's dad in the end, you know?
I think if I'd watched more, I probably would have grown to like him more. But it's a bit of a slog, so
yes.
I didn't. But yeah, no, I do get that. And he is out of all the Decepticons the most interesting one. Sorry. Predacons, Decepticons, whatever we're calling them. Those guys, the baddies.
Yeah, no, 100%. He's got more, well, I guess what you could call it is like an actual kind of character arc in a sense of how he, you know, realizes that, you know, why am I being a doormat when I could actually be appreciated?
Yeah, doesn't he get a fairly good ending as well?
He does. He gets to stay behind. The rest of the bad guys get taken to some sort of Cybertron prison by Fortress Maximus, and he gets to stay on Earth and just, you know, how that would
be Skybite.
Yeah.
And he's kind of redeemed in some way. Yeah, cool. So, I mean, any more you'd want to say about the show?
Yes, there's something that we haven't talked about. It's the animation.
It's alright, isn't it?
I think it's pretty good. It holds up. Like what?
Yeah.
Where are we, 14 years later? Or 15?
As we have established before, and will do again very soon in this very podcast, maths is not Dave's strong point. 2001 was 23 years ago, not 14 or 15, and seeing as this show debuted in Japan in 2000, the animation is at least 24 years old at time of recording. It's okay. I don't think it's anything special.
Well, I think it's because it's that... Okay, I'll give you an example. The Car Robots intro has got a lot of CG in it.
It has, yeah.
And that has not aged very well at all.
No, that CG is quite bad, and that CG in Car Robots, that's also used in the middle of the show when they do the break.
Yeah, no. There's something about 2D animation, especially stuff at that time, and like mech or robot type stuff. It just really looks cool. Like they make, you know, certain G1 toys are in this toy line look so amazing on screen. Like the Combaticons, the design work that looks cool for their transformations, and the way people transform, you know, out of the shining lights type stuff, and they just transform, you know, in a normal shot. It's so kind of satisfying how they click and clang, and they kind of transform like their toy does, but not exactly.
Pretty much do. It's quite faithful, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, for the majority of them, I think it's pretty spot on how they do it, but it's just like, it's nice how they added those little bit of stylizations, and I don't know, I kind of like the animation. It's
the parts forming's even there.
Yeah. Bits just go fly off somewhere, not to be seen.
And then come back. in a different place. Yeah, no, I agree. The animation's pretty good because it's one of those. It's a Japanese show. Japanese animation is usually pretty damn good. It's obviously better than G1, but it was very par for the course at the time. I would say, like there were a lot of shows that were of a similar animation quality.
Well, I think maybe why I appreciate it because we have recently done like Armada and Energon and like Armada in particular, like some of it looks really nice, but then like the majority of it looks really off model and weird, and like this is pretty consistent and quite nicely done throughout the show.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's not got nearly as much shonkiness to it. It is quite slick, I would say. Yeah. No, the animation's nice. The music's kind of what you'd expect. You know, the intro, bad. Both of them. The Japanese one's a bit better, but then it usually is.
Yeah, I mean, it's not my favourite intro, but I guess
it's fine. It's fine.
Did you have like? Well, I guess you wouldn't if you weren't too intrigued by the show. I was gonna say, did you really like any of the Autobot teams, like the Spy Changers or the Bullet Train, or
as toys? Yeah,
as toys.
They don't have very interesting characters, so
I thought like the Spy Changers in particular quite cool concept of what they could do. You know, to reuse those toys and make them kind of like they're mini bots or even smaller than that, really, aren't they? And they use that for them to be spies and.
But they're full-size cars.
They're small cars. They're not the normal size cars.
They're full-size cars. At least they were when in the episode they were introduced.
Are they?
Yes.
Even like the Armorhide guy or Ironhide?
Yes.
Okay.
Because they are driving along the side of the and
they're
driving along the edge.
Yes.
And then they're disappearing and so on.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, I like the inclusion of them in the toy line. I'm not really that bothered about the show is fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with the show. I think it's a pretty well put together, entertaining kids show. Mm-hmm. It's just not for me, you know. Yeah. But it's fine. And you were younger when it came out, so you would have probably appreciated it more than I did. I mean, how old were you in 2001?
Oh, let's not do my maths again. How old?
I think last time I worked it out for you.
If I was born in 1992.
Oh God, this is such an easy sum. Come on. 1992. So how old were you in 2001?
I was 10.
9. Come on.
Well, it was December. Or maybe it wouldn't have come out while I was for my birthday. So.
It doesn't matter. You were born in 1992, so you would be 10 in 2002.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
That's what 92 plus 10 is. Come on. So yes, you were 9 when this came out. So of course it would have appealed to you more than it did me.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have seen it when it came out though. I would have seen it a few years later. But yeah, I know what you mean.
You were still a kid.
Yeah.
You still weren't even a teenager.
I wouldn't have left school before I saw this. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's perfect for what it is. I'm not criticising the show for being zany and silly and nonsense. Like, I'm not criticising for that at all. I think that that's a good thing, you know? And it's the same as I don't criticise the later RID show for being a bit like that, or Cyberverse for being like that, or Earthspark for being, you know... This is what they should be. They should be kids shows, so it's fine. It's just not for me.
Yeah. I get what you mean. Yeah, I understand what you mean.
I mean, if I'd watched it at the time, maybe I'd have some nostalgia for it, which I think you do. But like, I didn't. So for me, like, watching it now, I'm like, yeah, this is fine, but I wouldn't choose to watch all of this because why would I? I'm a 45-year-old man. Like, I don't. Some people do like watching... I mean, I don't even like watching G1. So, yeah. Anyway. It's all right. I'm fine with it. So, anything else on the TV show before we move on to talking about the real good stuff, the really good stuff, the toy line?
Some of the voice acting was a bit weird. I found it Omega Prime's voice being a bit weird because I think it's the same voice actor as Megatron.
Yeah, but it's like double tracked, isn't it? So it sounds like two people.
Yeah, it's a weird choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There were quite a few. I mean, yeah, they for one season for this one show they stopped using the Beast Wars guys.
Oh, yeah.
But and the main reason for that was that at the time, most of the people on Beast Wars were used to doing in the room read stuff where the animation came later, whereas this was all ADR dubs.
Okay.
And the guys who did this were all people who'd done that in the past, like the guy who plays Optimus Prime, Neil Kaplan, or Kaplan. He'd done loads of stuff for Japanese dubs. He'd done Digimon, he'd done Bleach, he'd done Naruto, he's done Power Rangers, he's done Voltron.
Yeah, there's some voices in there I do recognise. There's definitely some Digimon character voices. And yeah.
And what, pray tell, is the guy who plays Megatron most famous for?
I don't know.
I would have thought you'd know this one. So, his name is Daniel Rawdon, I'm going to say. Daniel Rawdon, or Ryden. He's appeared occasionally in Star Trek, he's in a few other things, but he's most famous for playing Turbo Man in Jingle All the Way.
What, the real Turbo Man?
Yes.
Wow, okay. Wow.
So that's the guy who does Megatron's voice.
Oh, that's not... I can't hear it, but I have to play it.
Maybe he's a talented voice actor and actually puts on voices rather than just does his voice.
Now you mention it, it is weird that it's like there's not some of those usual suspects of voice talent in here.
No, especially considering they go back to them for Armada.
But I'd say that I know some people don't really like this Optimus Prime voice actor as this Prime. I thought he did a fine job. I don't mind his Prime.
No, he's all right.
Some of the weird
accents,
or inflections in some people's voices of like the different characters. I think it kind of suited the character or the vehicle type or the design. Like it wasn't as weirdly thrown about like maybe something like Cybertron is, or like Jetfire being Australian for some reason. Like it's just, it doesn't.
But this is the start of that, isn't it? This is the start of that.
Yeah,
because you've got like X-Brawn's got a kind of country accent, hasn't he? Like a kind of southern accent.
He definitely says "yeehaw" at some point.
And then you've got one of the trains is like a kind of a British guy.
Yeah,
there's a few things like that. It's a bit like, oh, okay, all right. Fine, I guess. I think even Ultra Magnus sounds a little bit kind of like he's got an accent.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. It's definitely, it helps because some of them do play other characters, and you can kind of hear it sometimes. But it's like because they've got that type of accent or whatever going on, kind of helps suspend your disbelief. And
well, I mean, unless you're going to start questioning where the hell they got those accents from. So how come? Hang on, what did he grow up in the deep south?
Why don't they all sound Japanese if they all are in Japan? Like, what?
Well, yeah. I mean, in Japan there is some differences. Like, for instance, I think it's the train that's British in Robots in Disguise. In Car Robots, I think has a very childish voice.
Oh. Okay.
So there are some they're not massive differences, but there are differences here and there. They did switch things up and around. But yeah, I mean, it's fine. The voice acting's fine.
Yeah.
I've got no problem with the new Optimus Prime. He's fine. I mean, he sounds Prime-like. He's definitely. I mean, I think I saw an interview with him where he said he basically based his voice off of mostly watching G1 and a little bit of Beast Wars. So he did kind of go to Peter Cullen more so than Gary Chalk.
Yeah, I think which is fine. I think he's not doing like an impression of him or anything, but it's that type of, it's how Prime would say these things, or you know, he's not shouting like a certain War for Cybertron character, or you know, he's, you know,
that touches on a broader point I want to make about the whole thing, is that this is like them going back to the well of G1, in that they're going, right, we're going back to real life vehicle modes. We're not doing beasts anymore, really. Sort of are, but not really. And we're basically revisiting G1 here. But they're doing it in a way where they're going, let's just do a new version of it rather than try to ape it or to make a carbon copy of it, you know? Which I think that's very much what I like about the line that I don't like about more recent lines, is that it isn't trying to just do the same thing again. It's doing a similar thing but remixing it. And that's what he's doing with his voice. You know, he's not just doing an impression of Peter Cullen. He's just using it as reference.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's got those key elements, but it's definitely, having it being Predacons to start off with, for instance, is a different twist than it being Transmetals, bodies and whatnot. And it's, I can see that.
Well, and in a way also it's because Japan were leading out of the Beast lines and wanted to kind of give you a soft introduction. So like, well, this is what you expect of Transformers. This is what we've been doing from Transformers for the last, would have been like almost 10 years now, you know, like Beast stuff. Now we're easing you back into Autobots and Decepticons and so on. Because it was the first time they brought those insignias back, you know? Previously it had been the Maximal and Predacon insignia and so on.
What's the other signal that they have for like Ruination? It's not a Decepticon one. What is that?
It's an upside down G2 Autobot symbol.
All right, okay.
Which really, I think, only came about because the toy of Laser Rod Optimus Prime, Laser Optimus Prime, has those discs that fire, and they have a G2 symbol moulded into them. Right? So when they did Scourge or Black Convoy, they're like, either we take this moulding out or we use it in some way. So they went, how about we use an upside down G2 Autobot insignia as their insignia, because they are kind of like evil Autobots. So they did that.
Okay. I would love to have been in the boardroom in that. I mean, let's just turn them upside down.
It's sort of genius, really.
I kind of like it. I kind of I remember Scourge has it on his like shoulders.
Yeah, on his shoulders.
It lights up at some point. Yeah, it's fine. It's just a bit weird. I mean, I do, since you mentioned the base mode, I do like that he uses his base mode, and it, you know, for all of his artillery and whatnot. It does pop up now and then.
So does Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
There's lots of showcasing the toys, which is important for a bloody TV show, which, you know, some TV shows haven't done as well. But this really does go, here's a toy, here's what it does, in quite intricate detail, especially some of the transformations. Like I say, they are very accurate to the toys. So you do get to see it. Like, you get to see how they transform and how they combine with each other and what the other bits do when they're not attached to them, you know?
Yes.
So it was pretty good, really.
I mean, it's like I said, it's a bit of a weird oddity of a show and where it fits in the Transformers history. It's quite very kid-focused, hyper Japanese animation, you know, all those tropes that you can just think of for a Japanese show. It's there, you know, characters breaking out into heart eyes and waving flags. There's even an episode where all the Predacons dress up as Optimus Prime. It's just, it's wacky, but it's part of his charm, I think.
Oh, agreed. I will briefly mention that there wasn't a comic, but there almost was a comic, in that there was one story in the Dreamwave 2004 Summer Special, Transformers Summer Special. They did a one story using the RID characters, and then there was a fan vote to choose what they would do as a mini-series, RID or Beast Wars. And Beast Wars won by a fucking landslide.
As it should have, really. I mean,
yeah.
it's not. Yeah.
But it didn't really matter because Dreamwave folded in early 2005, so neither happened anyway.
Oh, right.
But, so there wasn't a comic, but there was plans for one.
Okay.
Yeah.
My optics!
Hello, Orion Ghia here. This particular episode of Arg My Optics is well long, so we've cut it into more digestible chunks. You can find the next part straight after this in our uploads, or, if I've worked out how to do it, you can see a link on the screen right now. Thanks for listening.